Have you ever faced a situation so devastating, so final, that it felt like all hope was gone? A moment where the silence was so loud, it deafened every ounce of faith you had left. Today, we're diving into the story of a woman who faced just that. A woman whose name we don't even know, yet whose story has echoed through millennia. We call her the Shunammite woman, and she is a towering example of a mother's love and a faith that refused to accept death as the final answer. Our story begins in a small town called Shunammite. Here lived a prominent, well-to-do woman. The Bible describes her as great, which could mean she was wealthy, influential, or simply a person of remarkable character. Most likely, it was all three. She had a comfortable life, a loving husband, but one thing was missing: the sound of a child's laughter in her home. In her culture, this was a deep source of sorrow. One day, a dusty traveler passed through Shunammite. This wasn't just any traveler. It was Elisha, the prophet of God, known throughout the land for the miracles that followed him. As he traveled on his prophetic circuits, he would often pass by the Shunammite woman's home. Noticing this man of God, she didn't just offer him a drink of water and send him on his way. She saw something special in him. She told her husband, "I know that this man who often passes our way is a holy man of God." Her hospitality was extraordinary. It started with a meal. Every time Elisha passed through, she would insist he stop and eat with them. But she wanted to do more. Her heart was moved with a desire to create a permanent space of rest for the prophet. She proposed to her husband, "Let's make a small room on the roof and put in it a bed and a table, a chair and a lamp for him. Then he can stay there whenever he comes to us." This wasn't just about providing a room. It was about creating a sanctuary. It was an act of profound respect and honor for God's servant, expecting nothing in return. Elisha was deeply touched by her generosity. He wasn't used to such kindness. He wanted to repay her. So, he called her and asked, through his servant Gehazi, "You have gone to all this trouble for us. Now what can be done for you? Can we speak to the king or the commander of the army on your behalf?" He was offering to use his influence to pull strings in high places for her. But her response was telling. She replied, "I have a home among my own people. In other words, I'm content. I have everything I need." She wasn't seeking political favor or social climbing. Her generosity was pure, flowing from a genuine heart. But Gehazi, being a keen observer, knew something more. He told Elisha, "She has no son, and her husband is old." This was the unspoken ache in her otherwise complete life. The one thing her wealth and status couldn't buy. So Elisha called her again. As she stood in the doorway, he delivered a promise that must have sounded impossible, a dream she had long since buried. He said, "About this time next year, you will hold a son in your arms." Her reaction was one of disbelief, almost a plea not to be toyed with. "No, my lord," she said. "Please, man of God, don't mislead your servant." It was too good to be true. She had likely resigned herself to a childless life, and here was a promise that threatened to reopen an old wound. But God's promises through his prophets are not empty words. Just as Elisha had said, the woman became pregnant, and a year later, she gave birth to a son. Imagine the joy. The house that was once quiet was now filled with the cries and laughter of a baby. The dream she had dared not dream had come true. This boy was not just a son. He was a miracle, a gift from God, a tangible sign of his favor. Years passed. The boy grew, a constant source of joy for his parents. He was the center of their world, the living, breathing proof of God's goodness. Then, one day, the unthinkable happened. The boy was out in the field with his father during the harvest. Suddenly, he cried out, "My head! My head!" He had collapsed in agonizing pain. His father immediately had a servant carry him back to his mother. She held her son on her lap. Can you picture the scene? A mother, holding her precious, miracle child, watching him suffer. She would have done anything, tried every remedy she knew, whispered every prayer she could think of. But his condition only worsened, and by noon, he was gone. He took his last breath in his mother's arms. The joy of the household was extinguished in an instant. The laughter was replaced by a crushing, deafening silence. The miracle had been taken away. Now, what would you do in this moment? Most people would be paralyzed by grief, lost in despair, consumed by anger and questions. Why, God? Why would you give me this gift only to snatch it away? But the Shunammite woman did something astonishing. Her first actions reveal a faith that is almost beyond comprehension. She didn't collapse in a heap of tears. She didn't start making funeral arrangements. Instead, with a resolve forged in fire, she carried the body of her son upstairs. She took him to the very room she had built for Elisha, the prophet's room, and she laid him on Elisha's bed. Then, she shut the door and left. She was sealing the room, not as a tomb, but as a place of preservation. It was as if she was saying, "This situation is not for me to handle. This is God's business." She placed her dead son on the bed of the man of God, symbolically placing her impossible problem right back into God's hands. Her next move was just as decisive. She went to her husband and said, "Please send me one of the servants and a donkey so I can go to the man of God quickly and return." Her husband was confused. It wasn't a festival or a new moon celebration. Why go to him today? He asked. He didn't even know their son was dead. She had shielded him from the immediate shock, perhaps, to prevent his grief from hindering her mission. Her answer to him was 3 simple words: "It will be well." Or, in some translations, "All is well." How could she say that? Her son was dead. Her world had fallen apart. But in that moment, her faith was speaking louder than her circumstances. She wasn't in denial. She was making a declaration of faith. She believed that if she could just get to the man who was the channel of God's miracle in the first place, things could be set right. She saddled the donkey and told her servant, "Lead on. Don't slow down for me unless I tell you." She was a woman on a mission. There was no time to waste. She embarked on a journey of about 20 miles to Mount Carmel, where Elisha was. Every step of that journey must have been a battle between her grief and her faith. From a distance, Elisha saw her coming. He recognized her immediately and knew something was wrong. A woman of her stature wouldn't be racing across the countryside on a donkey unless it was an emergency. He sent his servant Gehazi to meet her, instructing him to ask, "Are you all right? Is your husband all right? Is your child all right?" When Gehazi met her and asked the questions, she gave the same incredible reply: "All is well." She refused to speak her tragedy to anyone but the man of God himself. Her issue was not with the servant. Her focus was singular. When she finally reached Elisha, she didn't even speak at first. She fell at his feet and grabbed onto them, an act of desperation and supplication. Gehazi tried to push her away, but Elisha stopped him. "Leave her alone," he said. "She is in bitter distress, but the Lord has hidden it from me and has not told me why." Then, her anguish poured out. "Did I ask you for a son, my Lord?" she cried. "Didn't I tell you, don't raise my hopes?" Her words were a mix of pain, accusation, and raw faith. She was reminding Elisha of his promise, of the miracle. She was essentially saying, "You started this, God, through you, gave me this son. You can't let it end like this." Elisha immediately understood the gravity of the situation. He turned to Gehazi. "Tuck your cloak into your belt. Take my staff in your hand and run," he commanded. "Go straight to her house. If you meet anyone, do not greet them, and if anyone greets you, do not answer. Lay my staff on the boy's face." But the woman's faith was not in the staff. It was in the man of God himself. She would not be fobbed off with a second-hand solution. She looked Elisha in the eye and made a vow, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." She was relentless. She knew that only the prophet's personal presence would suffice. Seeing her unwavering determination, Elisha got up and went with her. Gehazi ran ahead as instructed. He reached the house, went to the room, and laid the prophet's staff on the boy's face, but nothing happened. There was no sound, no response. He ran back to meet Elisha and the woman on the road and delivered the grim news. "The boy has not awakened." When Elisha arrived at the house, he went straight up to the room. The scene was just as the mother had left it. The boy, lifeless, lying on the prophet's bed. Elisha went in, shut the door behind him, and was alone with the child, and with God. What happened next is one of the most powerful moments in the Old Testament. Elisha prayed to the Lord. Then, he got on the bed and lay on top of the boy, mouth to mouth, eyes to eyes, hands to hands. As he stretched himself out on him, the child's body began to grow warm. Elisha got up, walked back and forth in the room, and then stretched himself out on the boy once more. This time, the boy sneezed 7 times, a sign of life, of breath returning, and he opened his eyes. The impossible had happened. Death had been reversed. Elisha called Gehazi and told him, "Call the Shunammite." She came in, and Elisha said the most beautiful words a grieving mother could ever hear. "Pick up your son." She came forward, fell at his feet, and bowed to the ground in overwhelming gratitude and worship. Then, she took her son, alive and well, and went out. Can you even begin to imagine that moment? The reunion, the tears of joy, the miracle held once more in her arms. The Shunammite woman's story is a masterclass in faith. She responded to tragedy not with passive acceptance, but with active, relentless faith. She took her problem directly to the source of the promise. She refused to settle for anything less than the full power of God. She declared all is well, not because it was, but because she believed it would be. Her story teaches us that even in the face of our darkest moments, in the face of what seems final and irreversible, there is hope. It encourages us to be bold in our faith, to run to God, not away from Him, when tragedy strikes. It shows us that a mother's love, fueled by unwavering faith, can defy even death itself. She is a testament to the truth that with God, nothing is truly impossible. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey today. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories of incredible faith. Until next time, remember to hold on to hope.